Yo, what's poppin'? It's Tommathan, and the Seoul Dynasty have re-signed Profit. So the team right now is Toby head coach, MMA assistant coach, Profit. That's it. That's all we got. But this is a fantastic starting point for this point in the season with what's available. Profit was probably the biggest name you could grab, I would say. And it kind of just made sense. In my video yesterday where I talked about where big name players might go, I was like, Profit will probably return to Seoul. It just makes too much sense. He gets to stay in Seoul. He gets to stay in Korea. There are no massive teams. Like, there's no big spenders that are missing that FDPS slot, right? Because you have Atlanta with Stalker, you have Kevster on the Glads, you have Pelican on Houston, Boston already have Decay, and they already have spent so much money on such a big roster. Dallas got their guys figured out. They got Sparkle chilling. He's not going to Spark. He's not going to Zest in the other Soul team. It just made too much sense to return to the Seoul Dynasty, even if it's not as much money as he could have gotten elsewhere, right? It just makes too much sense for him. So he does end up returning. And then he went on stream, and he ended up talking a bit about just things in general. It's kind of all over the place because it's a stream and it's a translation. So I'll try and like allocate it, like position. I don't know what the word is. I don't know what I'm thinking of. Make it flow nicely. So starting off with why he chose to go back to Seoul, right? He doesn't know the exact reason. He talked with different teams, and he decided that maybe over a month he's been decided to go to Seoul. He chose the team that was most compelling to him. Other teams offered more money, but he wanted to be in Seoul. It's just comfortable in Korea. Maybe it's because there's nice youngs or the coaching staff, basically Toby, essentially. He's familiar with them. He's been there so long. Also, MMA has been there a long time, since 2019, I think. Then there's all that. He decided pretty quickly. He didn't talk much to the other teams, and during that time, the situation in APAC was pretty bad, and it still is pretty bad because the whole NetEase licensing thing still hasn't been figured out as far as we know, and that is quickly approaching like the end. Like, it has to be sorted out soon. He honestly doesn't know the reason he chose Seoul. There are probably a lot of reasons. Maybe I'm just too lazy to move to a different team. I'm too used to Seoul now. Too much of a hassle moving teams. And it's not like they were offering 3 times more money anyway, so let's just stay. Which is so real. You get to stay in Korea, which is, I'm assuming, massive for him. He mentioned it. It just makes so much sense right there. Right? For teams first DM you, hey, I heard you're a free agent now. Because it takes time for them to reach back again, that's around the time I decided to re-sign with Seoul. Which is kind of valid because you might think, oh, we're just impatient. He wanted to get under contract as quick as possible, which is A, valid, and B, it kind of, the teams that will like bug you the most probably want you the most. You know, I feel like that kind of stuff is probably important with how it dictates how you're going to be treated probably on that team. So if they take their time, you know, waiting to see other options or waiting for all that stuff, and they don't immediately try to get him back, it kind of shows that he's not a high priority to the team. So he just decides to re-sign with Seoul. But that's basically it. And then going on about, you know, the announcement and the team's future and all that. First up, why is everyone happy? Is it that big of a deal? He's happy that everyone's happy, which is funny. To me, it's like, it's good for APAC to have Profit in it. Like, going to NA would have been probably better for him in terms of competing. But at this point, I want to see a higher level of play in APAC. I don't want it to be like NA is Owl and then APAC is contender. So seeing Profit in APAC means at least 3 teams, being the Seoul Infernal, the Seoul Dynasty, and the Hangzhou Chart, the Hangzhou Spark, they'll all be pretty good teams, probably. So you at least have some good competition there, which is what I was worried about. That there was just going to be, you know, Seoul Infernal, Hangzhou Spark going crazy. But with Profit on the team, it adds some validity, right? Next up, he'll be having fun for the year, right? Because, as he says, where is it? What, I can't read. Where is it? Hello? Because he can push his mandatory military service until next year, because he does have to do that, right? So he says he can push it until next year. Will he still be in Seoul? I don't know. You don't know what will happen in the future, so I won't say anything with certainty. Seeing me now, I might be in Seoul next year. I don't know if this next year means Season 6 or Season 7, because obviously you're in Seoul next year. Like, That's where you'll be because you just signed with them. So is he talking about another 2 years? He's saying he might push it up even more. Who knows? Maybe that's what that means. I don't know. But basically he's just saying that's a thing he has to do soon. So eventually he will be, retiring from Owl. So his goal is to have fun with great players for 1 year. I joined Seoul to have fun. I don't want to be stressed. If I'm honest, I thought it would be an NA2, which most people did. It's just like, but where would he go now? That's the thing. Where would he go in NA? There's no real good teams left, so that's why they did it like that. Another thing that's very interesting, he says they'll have to sign up players. I won't be recruiting them, but I could make suggestions. This is coming from this season when Smurf pulled up to Seoul. He said that Prophet reached out to him and like kind of encouraged him to join because he's Prophet. He has that pull, and Smurf's like, sure, Seoul seems fun. It's Seoul. Why not? So he's saying he won't be recruiting them, but he could make suggestions. And having Prophet on that team gives it so much more validity, right? If you're a player and you're like, oh, I'm going to play beside Prophet and I'm going to be in Seoul, a lot of Korean players are going to jump at that opportunity. So even if it's less pay, like Prophet took a pay discount, it's better for Seoul, and they might actually field a competitive roster. Another way I could see Seoul taking this, right, is you have Prophet as your veteran on the roster, and then you try to bring in, newer, fresher rookie pieces and try and use him to like transfer his knowledge from playing in Owl since season 1, his 5 years of Owl, into them, right? You just get some really good mechanically skilled players, put Prophet beside them so that he can be like, yo, don't worry, be the leader, whatever. That seems pretty valid to me. And then he also gets to have a fun time. Or maybe he does. Maybe that's not a fun time. Depends on what he's feeling. But it would make sense to me if Prophet would decide to go on a one last ride kind of season. Be kind of like take over a mentorship kind of role would be smart. There's some other stuff here that is kind of relevant. He thinks comp is really bad. They need to reveal our SR. If he wasn't a pro, he wouldn't be playing the game. It's that bad. And that is crazy to hear. It's not that crazy because I guess a lot of pros probably feel this way, but it's like, god damn, you gotta get on this shit, Blizzard. This is so bad. I feel like they're bringing lower tiers up to decrease matchmaking time. They definitely are. From personal experience, I'd be playing with Plats, bro. That ain't proper. It ain't supposed to be like that. You need to have a duo. It's a huge problem. It makes me not want to stream because of the bad matching system. His thoughts on the Fusion changing the Soul Infernal. He thought, oh, they changed. He does not care. Bro does not care. He's checked out. He could not give a fuck. I want NA and APAC to merge. It was fun scrimming with many teams. With the league separating regions, it's hard to know if your team is doing good. Even if we were doing well in APAC, I still question whether or not we were actually good overall. It's impossible for APAC to be better than NA, which is just spitting facts. It comes down to NA has more teams, so you get more diverse practice, so the meta develops better, or quicker, rather, and the teams will do better as a result. Not just how it is. There's not much more else to go about that. Especially with this season, it looks like a lot of the talent is going to NA because NA is paying better with APAC being all up in the air, right? So this is going to be even more dramatic than last season, or seasons before that even. And I don't know. Overwatch League needs to figure out what's going on there. They have to really determine, do we want to actually have split regions? You can't just have 7 teams in APAC. It's not sustainable. You can't do anything about it this year, probably. But there needs to be steps moving forward, whether you want to make it a 10-10 split, whether you want to make the APAC teams play against NA more often and be able to scrim against them more often. Something like that would be even good. If they get to scrim against NA half the season, then it's not nearly as bad. If you have more tournaments where they can scrim like that, that'd be good too, right? Anything like that would be helpful for APAC teams to stay on top. Because as it is right now, NA just has an innate advantage by existing. All the previous Seoul players went to great teams. It proves that Seoul did well last year, which is kind of true. The Seoul team did do well. You were the best in your region, so yep, you did do well, don't worry. And then just a little bit of trash talk, Stalker. If you can't win on Atlanta, it's over. I know it's because of you. A lot of pressure being on a team with a great roster. I felt like that when I was in London, but it's great when even you're doing poorly, your teammates will do well for you. I want Vindame to die. by being dribbled by Smurf. I hope you get Ajax. So that's basically everything Prophet said. Very interesting post. Very interesting stuff from Prophet there. But I'm pretty happy about this. I'm pretty happy about this. And I'm excited to see what pieces they pull around him. I'm excited to see what the Seoul Dynasty looks like. I'm hoping for maybe it's not Top Dragon because I want him to get actual playtime. Alien is a huge player I'm looking out for from contenders if they want to go with a younger route, like I think. I'd like to see Tuyu get a team back. He's been in the Seoul system before. Tuyu has been one of the better tanks. Maybe bring him up. Something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of options they can do. And they should be able to utilize their being in Seoul and having Profit to make a pretty good roster despite being on a budget. Even if everyone's on league minimums, they'll be able to pull because they're the Seoul Dynasty. And that's pretty much that. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on Profit. Let me know your thoughts on the Seoul Dynasty, all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you like it, subscribe. Have yourself a good one, and deuces.